Oh my God. I don't know if I mean, these guys wear makeup, but some of it is more noticeable. And since it's got around to the time of HD cameras, it's like, he reminds me of my nan. You know, she used to put too much of that powder on. Boop, 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 boop. What was it called? Face powder? What's it called? What's it called? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know these things. Oh, look, you know, it's really coincidental. GB News is where Neil Oliver is based, and this guy is called Eel Oliver. Isn't that useful? Look, Eel Oliver. Slippery as they come. Eel Oliver, no. I'm only joking. I'm only joking. But Neil Oliver put so much of that powder on. Look what's happened. Now this is about something that's very relevant to the moment. It's one of those times where you see, you know me, I'm a police auditor. I like to look at what the police are doing and criticize them when they're doing something you can criticize. And trust me, you can criticize the police on many occasions. And so I'm going to criticize them today about what a lot of people. This is a bit of a go, but let's. Everybody's had to go with this. Everybody, look, Eel Oliver's going to tell us more.
And the scandal of a 16-year-old autistic girl.
No, he's not Eel Oliver. He's the outsider who's with Neil Oliver. He's the outsider. So here we go. This is a scandal of a 16-year-old girl being arrested by Nana lesbian Nana. I can't believe that the police are like, you know, how far do you have to go? How many pride flags? How much blue pride? How much pride do you need before you no longer realize you're a policeman and you're starting to beat up a 16-year-old autistic girl like Nana lesbian does?
Who was arrested by cops in her own home for saying a female police officer was a, quote, lesbian like her Nana, continues to roll on despite the case.
Not a lesbian. I swear to God, if I was a 16-year-old girl with a young lesbian Nana, then with blonde hair and short cut, and a cop would come in my home and look like a lesbian Nana, and like I say, I'm a young autistic girl. Well, by the sound of it, I would have elbowed the cop in the face, dragged her out, and said, "Get out of my fucking house! Get out of my house! I'm crazy, don't you know?"
It's being dropped. Footage of the incident, filmed by the girl's mum before going viral online, sparked a furious backlash.
Can you believe? I mean, I know I can't stop stopping it. I can't stop. Can you believe how much I'm stopping it? This is terrible.
West Yorkshire police dragged the teenager from an understairs cubbyhole where she was having an emotional meltdown.
Wow. Okay. Before we watch this shit show horror that is going to be this, I haven't actually seen this video yet. I've heard about it. I've heard loads of people comment on it, and every time it's been on, I've skipped out the room, and I don't like the idea. But the cops, once they got the shit over their eyes, once they can't see once they don't know what the price of bread is anymore, and they've gone off the rails, you can't stop them. They are on. I mean, people who watch my channel know, they know I have interactions with the cop all the time, and once they've got a hard on, they need to finish off it, if you know what I mean. And they got the hard on here for, well, a 16-year-old autistic girl in a cubbyhole having an emotional breakdown. Prepared to be sad with me.
She's autistic. I don't care. She's autistic. I know you're okay. I'm telling you, I've got Eunice coming. She's going to be arrested tonight. She's not homophobic. Look what you're clenching your fist. Go away.
Right. Okay. This is insane. This woman is insane. Okay, this is lesbian Nana. I've seen pictures of her before. She's going to arrest her, this little girl, for saying she looks like a Nana who's a lesbian. Now, anybody who knows anything about the law, including the police, should know police cannot be a complainant. A police officer cannot be a complainant. So what's she doing here? She's not a police officer anymore. Do you know, Lawrence Eastman said something interesting about this clip. He said, over 1,000 people have died in custody at police hands, and 0 police have been held accountable for those deaths. Think about that. And now think about this woman harassing this 16-year-old girl.
Teenage daughter.
What is up with you?
There is something wrong with you, mate. She's autistic. She don't like people touching her. She will have a meltdown. She won't come out. She's got autism. I'm Lisa.
So she can come out.
What the hell?
Among the out.
But listen, hey, I find that horrible. and attention should be drawn to it. But here we have the virtue signalers. These are the same guys who will feed you fear porn with nearly every title. GB News, nearly every title they pump out is fear porn. They're trying to get you, and then they try and pick up by being like, oh, look how terrible this thing everybody finds is terrible is. In those situations, if they were the police in those situations, if they were in those uniforms, they'd probably be driven by the rest of the police around them, because these guys are sheep, and sheeple do whatever the sheeple around them who are in authority tell them to do. And if you're a police officer, then the people next to you are your tribe. That's what they are, tribes.
Rage spiked. Online writer Tom Slater wrote, a police force that prioritises the hurt feelings of its officers over the well-being of a vulnerable young person has lost the moral plot.
Well, spiked. The place that gave Barbara Hewson, who said that the people like Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris should be able to have sex with girls who are under the age of 16 and stuff. This is Spiked, who gave that woman a platform, trying to talk about the moral authority and stuff like this. This is the thing: is that all of these press have their little areas. So GB News is obviously sitting in the area which is the libertarian ground, and that libertarian ground is offensive to conservatives and offensive to most conservatives and to most liberals or labours. But libertarians sometimes go across this. They come across subjects that cause visceral emotion or make people angry, and they utilize them to seek attention. That's what they're doing here. The Outsider with Neil Oliver.
A review of the arrest by West Yorkshire's police professional standards watchdog is ongoing, but the girl's mother has now pledged to sue the force. So,
damn right. And it's pretty easy to sue the force because they've got to prove that what they did was necessary. There is no reason that is necessary, especially not dealing with police officers. If someone's got autism or something, you should call in someone special for advice, and they'll tell you, don't drag her out of the cubbyhole, whatever you do. It's like when I was young, I remember coming in and there's two dogs having anal sex with each other, locked, two male dogs, and the first thing we did was throw water over them, and the thing you're not supposed to do is throw water over them. You only learn it often after you've done it.
Neil Oliver, what's your take on this? Was this the police going too far to protect the feelings of a lesbian officer? I mean, it's certainly backfired on them, hasn't it?
Yeah. Neil Oliver looks like he's a Sith. Do it. Go on. He looks like he's a Palpatine. Oh, look. He's got the Force within him, sitting on his big chair. What's nice? I like it. In his darkness, he's got the darkness behind him, a little bit of light from the front. He's trying to put forward an image. Oh, what do you think, Neil?
Well,
tell us.
Absolutely. Not so
I feel the same as everybody else.
very long ago, Dan, the police service, and it was a service in this country like the...
Come on. These guys want to do this. They want to say, oh, it was a police service. Yeah, you go back. Where are you going back to here? Are you going back to the corruption a decade ago, or the corruption 2 decades ago, or the corruption 3 decades ago? Or what are you doing? Are you going to go past are you going to talk to Mrs. Lawrence? Is that what you're going to do? Not even Mrs. anymore, is it? What are you going to do? Are you going to talk to people of the past who have suffered from the crimes? Are you going to talk to the people who were targeted in places like Brixton and stuff with laws that were completely racist? Is that the time when the police service was the police service? Are you going to talk to the Acties in Cardiff and the Cardiff Free who got arrested and put away, or the Birmingham 5, or however many there was, and all of the other different people who have been arrested and locked up the police service? It was was a service. It was a service. You could really go to them and they'd really fit you up. They'd, even though they had evidence in the Cardiff Free case of a man walking around with covered in blood, a white man, they started arresting the black guys. Is that the time when it was a police service? Are we going back further? Shall we go back to the 60s when it was a police service? Oh man, that was bad back then. What about the 50s? Oh, corrupt. What about Oh, if we even get back to like the Bow Street Runners, Peel Runner, the Peel Street Runners, or whatever they used to call them, Peel's Runners. Corrupt all the way down. It's going to be taken over by the intelligence service. There is service in the title, police service, intelligence service. It's put in there, but it's a misnomer.
I don't know, the fire service and the ambulance service. The police service existed, was there to look after the people.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, Neil. You're painting an idealistic view. It's false of the past, so you can try and make it fit a narrative that you're creating here, but it's not true. It was never a police service for the people. It was a police service for the rich, the wealthy, and those who were upper crust. Trust me, I had shit myself when the police, they'll be there to take your statement, and then they'll not be there to protect you afterwards. I've seen the police fail over and over again, all throughout my life, and I've heard loads of stories all before, and you've never been able to trust them. My mum worked in the police station and they were all stealing off each other all the time in the 80s. They were all just like the lockers were broken open all the time because police steal off police, because the biggest type of thief goes and works for the fucking police.
To keep people safe, to make them
Bullshit.
feel safe.
Pasty.
And I suppose, to round up the baddies.
Pasty. Oh my God, this is atrocious. This is pasty galore. Can you hear how much pasty's in here? This is so sickening. Oh, round up the baddies. Oh, they're going to round up the baddies. They were the heroes. They were the people of the past who were the best. But they weren't, were they, Neil? They weren't. Tell your mate Eel. No, they weren't. Look, he's having to look right up there. Look where Neil Oliver's looking. Is that the side of your mind that leads to your memory? Or is that the side of your mind that leads you to making up fiction? Fiction, Oliver. You're making up a narrative. The police service were always there for us when they were beating you round the ankles when you were protesting for rights in the 60s and 70s and 80s. When the police were on the side of people who were obviously heinous. Oh, they were your police service. Look after. When Hillsborough happened and the police all looked after each other. What's that? West Yorkshire Police, the most evil police force in the world for the entirety of its existence. Oh, well, no, but they were a police service, weren't they, Neil Oliver, for the protection of the people, like the 96 of Hillsborough, isn't it? Isn't it, Neil? Isn't it? Is that what you're saying?
But now it would appear that it exists to annoy people.
Oh my God, is this seriously? It exists to annoy people.
To set people on edge.
It's
and to be
always
part of what feels like, seems like, looks like a bigger orchestrated effort to set people at each other's throats.
Okay, half of that doesn't make any sense, because what this is about is the police themselves. This isn't about setting. We all agree. The people who are watching this all agree that the police should not drag out a 16-year-old girl with autism, because a police complainant, which legally you cannot be a complainant and be a police, is offended by being called a lesbian nana by an autistic girl. We all agree. How is this turning people against? What type of commentary is this? This is the police doing something wrong. And Neil Oliver is saying the police used to be wonderful. And now look at them. Everybody's against each other. No, they're not. Everybody in this case, everybody is complete. And you're commenting on this case. Look, it says the outside with Neil Oliver. After autistic teen arrest and release, the cops have lost the moral plot. It's to divide us. It's to divide. The cops are dividing us. No, they're not. They're separate entities. They are the division. They're the other side. Everybody else is on the other side going, it's not a police service. We all know this. It's not like it's
to divide people into bipolar camps as often as possible, to set...
Whoa, okay, wait a minute. Actually, let's go back, because Neil Oliver isn't describing the police here. He's describing the mainstream media channels like GBNews. Let's go back. Here we go. Listen to this.
Effort to set people at each other's throats, to divide people into bipolar camps as often as possible, to set one against the other. You know, it completely ignores the fact that cities like London are bleeding to death.
This is them talking about the mainstream news. Yeah, this is them talking about the mainstream news. They may be dressing up and saying is simply dividing by. Well, this is exactly what these guys are creating. This is the world that these guys are creating. Neil Oliver just described his own fucking job. He just described his own job. He is taking all of the one camp is over there and sounds the same, and the homogenous sound of the mainstream media. And GB is supposed to be the counter voice that says exactly the same thing, uses exactly the same tactics, and is that opposite pole, the other pole of this cockrodgering that we're getting. Let's listen to it again. It's unbelievable.
Completely ignores the fact that cities like London set people like a bigger people on edge, and to be part of what feels like, seems like, looks like a bigger orchestrated effort to set people at each other's throats.
Set people on edge and an orchestrated effort to set people at each other's throats. That is not the police force. The police force are another side and a tool for that. Mainstream media is what he's describing.
To divide people into bipolar camps as often as possible, to set one against the other.
Set one against the other, often as possible.
You know, it completely ignores the fact that cities like London are bleeding to death. You know, teenagers are stabbing each other and bleeding to death in the gutters of the city's streets.
Oh, he's painting it. And the kids are stabbing each other and are bleeding to death in the gutters of the streets. Yet, because the mainstream media and other, and it's the working parts of state, of the government, all of this stuff, as the authorities that rule have created that. You are part of that, what creates that, and you're describing what your channel helps create.
And, you know, in the last week or so, on TikTok and social media, mobs are helping themselves to the contents, the stock of retail outlets.
Right, so here you go. Fear, fear, fear. TikTok and stuff like this, I've said that they're equivalent to flicking through the psychological tests of the past that would see your reaction to fear. You know, you go down to sex, fear, sex, violence, sex, fear, people robbing some supermarket somewhere in the world. You know, you keep going through this. Then the people who are flicking through say, oh, these are things that happen in the real world. These are things that happen these are things that I am going to do this thing that happens in the real world. TikTok shows this. We've seen this on TikTok. Yeah, TikTok helps create it because TikTok's part of this mainstream media device now, isn't it? TikTok is part of it. People say, oh, it's not. It's that's not the mainstream media. Yes, it is. It's the big voices. It's the big platform that shoots out the same message, that advertises you, that sticks fear porn in your face, just like Oliver's doing here. What's Neil Oliver and GBNews doing? Your society's terrible. People bleeding in the gutters to death. What have you got? You got nothing. Everybody's going to die and everything's going to be on fire and the police are dividing everybody.
It's on the high street. And in the face of that, the police are opting instead.
Sorry, look at Neil Oliver's eyes.
Outlets on the high street.
Here we go.
In the face of that, the police are opting instead to ride out into the suburbs and the housing schemes
we would notice that
in their
signal.
rainbow-painted clown cars to arrest children for perceived wrongthink and wrong speech. Because
Yeah, okay. I agree. That's what they're doing, but they're doing that because of the mainstream media, because the mainstream media has pumped up fear and hatred and makes people think that they're hated more. You've got loads of these people who are really angry, who are pumped up on hormones, given extra hormones, go out and go at anybody who disagrees with them, and they reward them. Yes, that's true, but this is all of society pumped up by the mainstream media. The mainstream media is causing this division. This division he's talking about is not just about police is a tool within it. Mainstream media is what they're doing is, and look at all of that. It's really deceptive eye movements from Neil Oliver, in my opinion. Look how far up he's going. Like,
apart from anything else,
the
it's
side
the easy option. Rather than face up to and contemplate tackling knives and other weaponry and and violence and proper hatred manifest in physical violence, they're tackling how people might be thinking and what they might be saying.
Wait a minute. This is one thing. Is that okay? Yeah, I agree. Okay, wrong thing. This is one of his things that he likes to go into. And he's right. He's right. He is right. But this isn't, it's not like, oh, you either drag a 16-year-old autistic girl out of the closet or you go and stop a stabbing. That's not how policing works. You're responding to whatever comes up at the time. So I'm not a big fan of police, but if a police are called to a certain thing, then they attend to that thing. And then, yes, if they waste a load of time and taxpayers' money, that's one thing, but it's probably not going to heavily or negatively affect policing in another area of stabbing where you're having to respond. It's not like the police are called and then the stabbing happens. It's not like the police are there to stop the stabbing. Police don't even walk the streets that much anymore. No, they turn up and they respond to crimes that have happened. So the person has to have been stabbed, and it's unlikely it's going to be happening at the same time. But except if you're living in Neil Oliver's world, where everybody's stabbing everybody in the face all the time, rivers of blood through London, fear porn. That's what these guys are doing. They're doing it in a way of like, oh, look at my virtue, fear porn.
Now, that hasn't happened spontaneously, Dan. The police service, I would say, has been corrupted. And I don't know by what, but presumably it involves...
Bullshit. This is like giving them an off. Oh, this is an abnormal thing. This is an abstraction. This is something that isn't true all of the time of the police force, and it has been corrupted, and before it was all perfect. Are you really telling me it was all perfect? Really? And you can go through all of the cases of misconduct. I can go all the way from things like Hillsborough and the cover-up that followed, all the way to a guy in Caerphilly dressed in his full uniform wanking outside the police station. We could go through the whole spectrum of corruption in the police force, and we could go back in time to see the same sort of thing happening over and over and over again. In the past, you wouldn't have been fired for wanking outside. You would have got away with arresting someone you would have dragged out that 16-year-old girl. That police officer would have dragged out that 16-year-old girl, and the family would have had that kid would have been in jail, and that family wouldn't have had any of this fuss made. So in a sense, now there's more fuss made than ever before. So the police force, in a sense, is better than it's ever been before. But this is all fear porn. Everything's been made like this from the past, and it was in the future and in the present or in the now, and everything before was perfect. This idealism of a way of looking at the past in this sort of like picturesque, idyllic way. It's bullshit, Neil. It's bullshit. They all know. If you recognize it and you start looking at it, you can smell the bullshit. So let me tell you, what Neil Oliver's doing here is saying things like Hillsborough's fine. He's saying Cardiff Free deserve to be in prison. He's saying all of those things like that. That was a police service back in the day where it was perfect and stuff like this. You really got to realize it's nuanced. With nuanced then, it's nuanced now. It's nuanced in the past, in the present, and in the future. And there is no real difference. If we had cameras all around, we would have caught so much more stuff happening in the past. Do not give me this idyllic view of what the past was like, when the police hadn't been there to protect me in the past, hadn't been there to protect Stephen Lawrence, hadn't been there to protect loads of other people. Covered up shit really badly, worse than anything I've seen in the modern day. So Neil Oliver is giving what is called bullshit.
The way in which it now recruits and the way in which it now trains indoctrinates its people, and more than anything else, on account of the individuals who are put in place as chief constables and the rest of the superiors. And it would appear that somewhere along the line a decision was taken, that a policy was adopted to ignore violent crime. And
right, okay, so at some point down the line, a decision was made to ignore violent crime. Actually, along the lines, and the chief inspectors, chief constables, these are the problem. They were always the problem. The problem at Hillsborough wasn't the police on the ground doing stuff. It was the police who were giving the orders to the police on the ground. The police on the ground just follow because they're drones. They're trained like drones because they're trained to be futuristic military intelligence services rather than the old classic police force that Robert Peel had back in created in the 1830s. Now that time, the Bow Street Runners time, yes, it was different. The technologies were different, but they were still as corrupt on every single level. It's not just one or the other. This is just like pick and choose these cherries he wants to feed to you. And it's bullshit cherries. It's actually miniature dog poop. He's feeding you Chihuahua cum. That's what he's doing. Neil Oliver has got the gone off pieces of Chihuahua ejaculate, and he's feeding them to you. I'm sorry to have told you this, and please spit it out.
Burglary and
well, indeed,
and
it is political, Neil. It is political because I'm told,
political, Neil.
Tracy Brabin,
they were perfect
who's
in the past.
One of the mayors in the area, former Labour MPs, absolutely pushing this type of thing. But what was so shocking about this, Neil, is it was so obvious.
They were pushing. Wait a minute. They were pushing for what type of thing? For not responding to crimes and the things that he was saying, or for arresting 16-year-old autistic girls who are hiding under the stairs? Because those are two separate things. And to be perfectly honest, you've ignored the autistic teenager and how the police interact with people with learning difficulties and with autism and with other issues. I know because I, for years of my life, from abuse when I was young, suffered from severe anxiety, and at times in my life I had to take medication. So I was shaking and sweaty with the police. They would instantly assume that I was doing something wrong, and however much I told them I wasn't, they would assume that I'm doing something wrong. That is what police do. They can't get over themselves, and once they've got a bug in their bonnet, they'll use anything. They'll use a little sweat, a little shake, they'll use a stutter here and there. At the one where I was stopped the other day, he was saying, "Why are you shaking? Why are you sweating?" It's like, I got a whole line of police around me, stopping me from going anywhere and letting everybody else go backwards and forwards and only targeting me and not telling me why they're targeting me. Why would I not be a bit worried? Why would I not be shaking? Why would I not be angry? I'm not allowed to walk on a peaceful protest with people. Only me. Everybody else is allowed to go. Why are you shaking? Why are you forming a wall in front of me? Because you're coming up to the wall. You've only just formed it in front of me. You know, this is the police. This is how they work. Of course, they've always been like that. Don't tell me it's any different, you wanker.
That the 16-year-old girl wasn't trying to be offensive.
Well, okay, right. There's a difference. You're saying the 16-year-old girl wasn't trying to be offensive, right? Have you ever worked with any kids with autism? Because they're not all just like don't know what they're doing, you know. Kids with autism are quite wily, clever. I worked with a fair few kids with autism. I had like some that were non-verbal and some that were extremely hard to work with and had many, like one guy I worked with was 3-4 to 1. And he would put his hand up his own anus and pull out his own poo to attack you with. So you had to be on the ball with him and notice what was going on in advance. In actual fact, he knew he was being rude to people. And he used to be rude to people all the time to get a reaction. That's what they do. So he's saying he's acting like autism takes away all of your will and your understanding of how things work. And that is not necessarily the case. This girl was stressed. She was right to be stressed. She was right to be safe in her home and not be bothered by lesbian nana. Calling someone lesbian nana is not a crime. All right. All of that is true. But saying what he just said is false. So let's repeat what he just said.
Trying to be offensive.
She wasn't trying to be offensive. That is something he's put into himself. Because likelihood is that if she's able to live in community without too much support and still be around her mum and her nan and etc., then she's probably or on the spectrum. But that doesn't mean she's completely and utterly without understanding of what offense is or how to live in society or anything like that. But it also doesn't make her responsible and accountable in a normal way, especially not with a. And this is important. If that was a 50-year-old man who didn't have autism and he called that woman a lesbian nana, he would also be right to be completely and utterly offended by them trying to drag him out of his house and arrest him for that, with the police being a complainant when they can't be a complainant. He'd be exactly the same. It does not matter who it is. The police were breaking the rules. They're whoever it was, whatever they're doing. If they are arresting someone for something that they themselves are finding offensive, they have not read their own codes of conduct. They have not understood their own laws. But autistic kids, 16-year-old autistic kids, don't treat them all like they're completely utterly stupid, you arsehole. I met loads of wily, clever, funny, brilliant autistic kids who knew exactly they were being offensive when they were being offensive. Some of them who were hilarious at being offensive. Some of them, all they have is offensive, and you find this a lot with loads, and I'm sorry to go on about this, you find this a lot with loads of like ideas of what people are like. I remember I was working in as night manager in a hotel in Bristol called Thistle Grand, and we had the Restricted Growth Association stay with us, and it was 350 dwarfs and midgets staying in the hotel, and a ball in the night time in the biggest conference and banqueting facilities in the southwest, and it was just full of dwarfs and midgets everywhere. It was amazing. I took them down to the chip shop at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was a horror show. The things people say to people who have got something that is different about them is obviously disgusting and is obviously terrible. But I tell you what, every single one of those dwarfs and midgets are so used to it that the majority of what they say is like funny, offensive. You're not expecting it. You're trying to treat them nicely, and they're making fun of you because you're too tall. It's the site. People who have an issue often take out their issues on other people, but they also can be offensive, and they know they're being offensive. And it's part of having a challenging condition that you tend to be much more likely to say something that shows that you're willing to defend yourself. So saying that she did not mean to be offensive, you're putting your own thoughts, intentions, whatever, onto a 16-year-old autistic girl. That is the same thing Mama Lesbian did. Mama Lesbian saw different intentions within her, what the girl said, and decided to act on it, and decided to base what she did upon that. And this guy is also basing what he's saying and what he believes upon the idea that the girl doesn't know anything, and she and that's false, on a false idea. So annoying. I always find this. Sorry, I go on a rant about this. I know you're just staring at this Dickless Wonder and Neil Oliver on a screen here, and it's not probably very exciting, but I tell you, if I'm going to rant about anything, it's things like autism, because I just seen how people treat people with autism, and they're just like, it's like the neurotypical people are the problem nearly all of the time.
Well, I mean, I suppose we're all bound by the fact that it's not exactly clear what happened there. But as I understand it, all charges have
Neil
been
Oliver
dropped, and
realizes
the girl's been whatever, not let go, but she's been returned to the family and all the rest of it. And the police have made some kind of mealy mouth statement about
She's not been let go, but she's been released. I don't understand what he thinks let go is. All charges have been dropped. She's been released, but she hasn't been let go. That's right. Is that what you just said? I just got to check because I don't understand these guys. I thought they were respected journos. Oh no, they're not.
Whatever, not let go.
Whatever.
But, she's been returned to the family and all the rest of it, and the police have made some kind of mealy mouth statement about looking into the way that they pursue and do their business.
That's what they do.
But what are they doing? What are they doing? Focusing, spending time going after people.
It's not one or the other.
For as I understand it, as I know, when you make remarks like that in your home, from your home, no crime has been committed.
Not only is it not a public order offence, if you're on private property, and this is something you should all understand, and he's trying to explain here, but not doing it very well because he hasn't done his research properly. But it's if you cannot commit a public order offence unless you're in public. Do you see what a public order offence is? The prerequisite is that you're not in a private residence, is that you're in public. So not only that, police can't be a complainant. So you can't have the crime indoors and the police can't be a complainant. It has to be someone even in public. If someone was to complain about that comment the autistic girl made, you'd have to have a member of the public complain to the police officer that they were offended by what they said about the police officer. And that gets really, can you imagine anybody wanting to do that with a big butch lesbian nana? I don't think so. And she does look like it. But no, when have they, what, at one point, look, they've just set up, they've been doing like this, 15-minute sort of skit on this autistic girl. And they've not mentioned anything that's even that relevant. All they're saying is that because then they're dealing with an autistic girl, they're not stopping stabbings, which is really, really naive and a stupid way to look at things. They've not even told you. It's taken this long to tell you that it's not a public order offence. They haven't even told you that it's not an offence because a police officer can't be a complainant. Are they going to say it before the end of this? Because I don't watch these beforehand. Partly because then it gives me passion to be pissed off at the time. And like, what the hell are you doing, Neil Oliver? What are you saying? Oh yeah, it's just bump because you're doing the same thing everybody does. Fear porn. What's the difference between you and Fox? What's the difference between you and CNN? What's the difference between you and anyone else? Shit. Russell Brand, redacted, all of them. Fear porn.
So that the police were completely out of line. They were acting unlawfully, illegally, in going after that girl in the way that they did. Mob-handed, forcing entry into her home in order to effectively kidnap her. That was...
They actually forced entry. I thought they were let in because you'd be let in so that you can get this over. But the fact is, whatever happens, can the people who are supposed to be the journalists here mention that police can't be a complainant? Because that is really key to all of this.
They were completely out of line, and they must have known it. And if they didn't know it, then some other egregious wrong is there. But the point is the
point is something else, and not the autistic girl.
Dan, when you pull back from this, this
is one of the problems. This is one of the problems. The problems are the nuances need to be sorted, and this nuance comes up. And so this is a perfect opportunity to handle how police deal with autistic people, autistic children. They're understanding that it's going to backfire and all of this stuff. And even though this is the perfect time to focus on that, Neil Oliver is like, yes, but don't give a fuck about the 16-year-old autistic girl. Yes, 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 yes. But look at the wider picture. Look at the bigger picture. This is the bigger picture. We're looking at the bigger picture, the wider picture. No, but the wider picture is how people who have learning difficulties or developmental difficulties, autism, Down syndrome, things like that, how they are treated by authority in the society and how much knowledge that authority has about dealing with people like that. And the nuance is the important bit. One of the big points of autism is that some people who are autistic, you can't tell they're autistic. It's one of the hidden illnesses at times. You can't tell. They seem to be functioning normally. They can do this, they can do that, but you're not used to how they are, their manner, the way they act. You can't see differences. And that needs to be taught to the police. Neil Oliver is saying nothing about that. Neil Oliver is getting off that subject and looking at the wider picture. Kids are getting stabbed in London while these police are doing this. This is a narrative he's setting, and it's a false one, because it's not happening just at the same time. There's not only police to deal with this or police to deal with that. This is not the way it works. But what is important to take from this, what's vital to take from this, is that autism is extremely nuanced, extremely complicated, and must be treated as such.
This is something else that just annoys people, irritates people, makes people.
You're irritating me, Neil.
Get at each other's throats.
I will put a pasty down your throat.
Yeah.
And maybe buy you a cider, and we'll talk about this over a meal.
They're bullying other points of view into silence and invisibility.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more, and it's worrying, Neil Oliver.
Of the state, they're pushing a narrative, and they're bullying other demonstrably partisan now. They're myrmidons of the state. They're pushing a narrative, and they're bullying other points of view into silence and invisibility.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more, and it's worrying, Neil Oliver. So
it's
you were right to point that
Neil
out.
Oliver. You're right to point it out, Neil Oliver.
West Yorkshire Police's Assistant Chief Constable Oz Khan said we would like to reassure people that we will take on board any lessons to be learned from this incident. We do appreciate the understandable sensitivities around incidents involving.
You're kidding me. Of course this is West Yorkshire Police, the most corrupt police force in the world. And he doesn't sound like this. He sounds like this. We would like to reassure people that we will take on board any lessons to be learned from this incident. We do appreciate the understandable sensitivities around the involving young people and neurodiversity, and we are genuinely committed to the development and these often situations.